Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. And this is the Harmony, Your Path to Wholeness channel. And we lead you along that path to wholeness by bringing you really interesting and experienced and qualified guests. Today will be no exception. But first, let's introduce co-host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing on this snowy late winter day?
I'm doing great, Peter. And thank you so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. We are so excited to welcome Dr. Fayne Frey to the show. Hello, Dr. Frey. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Dr. Frey is a dermatologist who's been practicing for over 30 years. She's also the author of the book, The Skincare Hoax, and helps to educate consumers on how to select simple skincare regimens that promote healthy skin. So let's just jump right in. Dr. Frey, what is the biggest hoax surrounding skincare that most people believe?
Oh, I wish it was one single hoax, but the skincare industry, I will tell you, is a fantastic industry. It makes products we need.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, they advocate for their shareholders, as any good business does.
Mhm.
We also have the media and disingenuous marketing, right? They like sensationalism because they really want ratings and ad dollars. Combine that with a physically obsessed consumer base who unfortunately doesn't understand the ingredient listing, which is the most important information on a skincare product.
Right.
And we have the perfect storm for the setup of a $500 billion industry. And if there's a single hoax, I guess it would be that the overwhelming majority of products that are sold, we just don't need.
Wow.
hmm Interesting one.
Mhm.
So it strikes me as an older male who has very little interest in how my skin looks, I'll be quite honest. It strikes me that the skincare industry has demonized the sun. And is this not preventing a lot of people getting the benefits they should be getting from sunlight?
I'm not sure that they've demonized the sun. I think everything is benefit and advantage and
Okay.
disadvantage. We need the sun. The sun is wonderful. We encourage people to go outdoors, but there's a downside to the sun, namely, well, most importantly, it creates aged, old-looking skin. And any person over 40 can look at their bodies in the privacy of their bathroom and examine areas that are exposed and areas that are unexposed, and you'll see a huge difference. That
Yes.
skin is the same age. It's just sun. So,
Sure.
it wreaks havoc on the skin, number one. Number two, in the United States, there are over 3 million skin cancers a year,
Mhm.
and with direct correlation with sun exposure. So those are the
Sure.
downsides to the sun. Obviously, the benefits, there is some health benefits to the sun, namely vitamin D production. But fortunately, we have other ways of getting vitamin D, supplements, fortified foods. And the other thing, as far as sunscreen is concerned, there is no sunscreen that's 100% effective. So even
Sure.
with sunscreen on, you're going to get some ultraviolet radiation and some vitamin D production. So again, everything else is benefit and risk. And in my opinion, the advantage of protecting your skin from direct sunlight outweighs the downside.
Okay.
What about the chemicals
Your
that they
comment.
put in sunscreen? Could they be harmful? Are there some ingredients that they put in sunscreens that are carcinogens?
I get asked that question a lot, but whether a particular ingredient is harmful doesn't have anything to do with the ingredient. It has to do with how much of the ingredient.
hmm
So doctors who study poisons, we call them toxicologists. And
Mhm.
if you were to survey them, I think over half of them would tell you the most poisonous, the most toxic substance on the planet is likely botulinum toxin, which is the purified form of what you find in Botox and Dysport.
hmm
So you have 3 million, well, I heard now 7 million injections of this
Wow.
very toxic substance to rid of a wrinkle. Again, it's not the ingredient, it's the amount of the ingredient. And so is true in sunscreens. Tiny amounts of these ingredients, the benefit outweighs the downsides. Sure, you can take any product. You could take nutmeg in your beverage or in your pastry. It's helpful, but if you eat 2 teaspoons of nutmeg, you will be hallucinating and have palpitations. So
Mhm.
Right.
it's not the ingredient, it's the amount of ingredient. So to take these absolutes, like are there carcinogens? Sure, if you were to take gallons and gallons of it and put it on your body, perhaps, but a tiny amount of a particular ingredient might be in that skincare product because the benefit outweighs the risk of it not being there. Preservatives is a perfect example.
Mhm.
Sure. Sure. Interesting. And of course, going back a couple of generations, arsenic was used as a tonic in small doses, wasn't it? And yet nowadays we consider arsenic as a deadly poison. Wouldn't let it anywhere near anybody.
Right.
So
So it's not
my
the
one
arsenic,
is
right? It's the amount of arsenic. Same with
that's
acetaminophen.
your
It
amount.
talks about what you find in Tylenol. Take one Tylenol, it knocks
Yeah.
out your headache. Take 20 pills, it knocks out your liver, and you're dead in 2
Yep.
weeks. So again, these absolutes that people like, again, this is part of the sensationalism. They're not really talking about
Of course.
science.
Right. Now, what about anti-wrinkle creams? Do they really work? And what exactly do we need in a moisturizer to keep our skin nice and supple?
Well, anti-wrinkle, anti-aging, age-defying, these are buzzwords. Remember, the most important information on any skincare product is the ingredient listing.
Mm-hmm.
But the average consumer doesn't understand propylene glycol and isopropyl myristate and triethanolamine. That's what's in these products. So the consumer doesn't understand the ingredient listing, so all they can go by is the front label. The front label has to have what the product is by law and how much, so that you can compare unit price to unit price. The overwhelming majority of other words on the front label are buzzwords, and one of them is anti-aging. So I can tell you with great certainty that science has yet to figure out a single ingredient or a single product that can reverse the aging process. So there is no such thing as an anti-aging. We can't reverse the hands of time. There are lots of theories. We don't know why we age. And to make things even more complicated is the overwhelming majority of these products are cosmetics. In the United States, cosmetics are defined by what they intend to do. So they intend to beautify or adorn. A moisturizer, for example, if you take a raisin and pump water into it, you get a grape. It temporarily improves the appearance of skin.
Right.
If it's really intending to change the structure or the function of an organ, by law, that's a drug, and that has to go through the FDA. So all these anti-aging products that you talk about, these are cosmetics. They don't intend to change the structure or function of your skin. They can't by law. Do they work? They work as moisturizers, and I know this because I test them in the office.
Oh.
Okay, I have a machine that actually objectively tests how much water content is in the skin. And after doing decades of these comparisons of these tests, I will tell you how well an anti-aging cream works. Really depends on how well it acts as a moisturizer.
So are there specific ingredients? So, I mean, as you said, the cosmetic industry is a $1 trillion industry. I mean, it's huge. You've got outlandishly expensive creams out there, and then you have the over-the-counter stuff that you would buy at your local drugstore. Are they any better? What should the consumer be looking for? It's enough to go cross-eyed when you walk down the skin cream aisle. Is there anything that you could suggest to look for?
Yes. So I actually took all my comparisons. I basically, again, we did this corneometry, this testing to find out what products worked. And I put it on a website called Fryface, Fryface. I don't sell anything and I don't work for a skincare company, but I will tell you after doing decades of comparisons, there is no correlation between how much you spend on a product, cosmetic, and how well it works. So I took these products, which are testing high, and I put a database on the website. And the consumer can go and pick. These are products that are made by internationally and nationally known brands. Why do I recommend those? Because I think they have the best resources to make the best products for the best price. And they're available everywhere. So if you're in Ontario or if you're here in New York or you go on vacation in California, you have easy access to these products. They're all on the website. Fryface, again, Fryface. It's easy, it's free. And I encourage consumers to pick safe, effective, and affordable products, sunscreens, moisturizers, and cleansers, and they're all on the site.
Wow, fryface.com, correct? Excellent.
Yeah, well,
that's valuable.
For our audio listeners, that will be in the description, so you can find it. So I've got a question for you, Dr. Frey. I lived in Africa most of my life, right in the tropics, and my generation didn't know that the sun caused skin cancer. So to prevent kids getting sunburnt, we would get plastered with a milking salve that was used for milking cows by hand, right? A lubricant, which in later years, the doctors told me, well, that would make it worse because it actually magnifies the effect of the sun. It works like a magnet. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know. The point is, I've had over 100 skin cancer between basal cell and squamous cell excised over my lifetime, and I've still got loads more. I had one done yesterday, and I've got more that keep coming up. So I know that I can't reverse the damage, but could I slow the damage down with any topical treatment at my age, or am I wasting my time?
Look, the health of the skin parallels the health of the life. Healthy living includes a healthy diet and good nights of sleep and exercise. And yes,
Sure.
sunscreen. You've got to avoid ultraviolet light exposure. There are some therapies. There's some topical prescription therapies that your dermatologist can help you with. There's some studies that show niacinamide, 500
Mhm.
milligrams once or twice a day, may help prevent some squamous cells and maybe basal cells. So there are some things you could do to help prevent the development of the non-melanoma skin cancers. Again, that's something that you would work with your dermatologist, knowing your
Sure.
history and the nature of your skin cancers.
Okay. But the important thing, as you say, is to avoid ultraviolet exposure, right?
Absolutely. Seek shade and enjoy the outdoors. I'm not an extremist. I don't say live indoors all the time. I think outdoors is wonderful, but be sun smart. Between 11 and 3, minimize those strong ultraviolet radiation, that exposure. Wear long sleeves, wear sunscreen. You do get scattered UVB rays if you're worried about your vitamin D, levels. And yes, take a supplement if you're deficient. But again, be sun smart, especially if you've had skin cancers, because if you get ultraviolet light exposure, you're going to get more of them.
Oh yeah, it's still going on, still going on. No, thank you for that. In my defense, my mother was very particular about us kids wearing hats, as were most mothers in Africa. So I've always worn not a cap, a proper wide brim hat out in the sun. So I've had very few on my face, and my face probably is not quite as bad as the rest of my exposed skin. So I think that's important too. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So, Dr. Frey, you've already touched on this in terms of the injectables, the Botox, but I'd like to just expand on that. What are your thoughts about, because I mean, cosmetics, people are heading to these treatment centers, the spas, for all these wonderful treatment centers that make you feel amazing. They get injectables and Botox, but I know it's small dosage, but what are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts about that. I think we are a culture that is obsessed with physical appearance.
Sure.
I think we are exposed to thousands, 4,000 to 10,000 messages a day, according to Forbes Digital Marketing, that are kind of brainwashing our idea that we have to look a certain way and fight the aging process.
Mm-hmm.
Our definition of beauty in the Western culture is tall, thin, and young. It is both unobtainable and unrealistic. And I think that a lot of women, after doing research, I'm not a psychologist or a sociologist, so I don't want to mislead anybody. But after reading studies, I will tell you, I believe a lot of women, but men too now, are jumping on the bandwagon, are doing a lot of these procedures because they think if they look younger, they will be happier. And I will tell you two things about that. In my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, Botox that freezes your forehead makes you look different. It doesn't make you look younger because young faces have expression.
Right.
Number one. And number two, when you look at the studies, happiness is not obtained by physical appearance or by income. The one variable where science consistently shows happiness actually has more to do with the value of your interpersonal relationships.
Right.
So in my opinion, instead of spending time, energy, and money on potentially risky procedures. And I think there's value in looking your best, and I think there's value in the creativity of hair, skin, and nails. I don't mean to belittle any of that.
Right.
I think it would behoove a lot of people to have a little perspective change and to spend their time, energy, and money on developing things that matter. And most importantly to me, that means relationships. So instead of spending $500 on an ounce of a moisturizer, which you could probably get the same thing for $8, perhaps make a small donation to your favorite charity, take your loved one out to dinner or to lunch. There are just better things to do with your resources than to try to achieve this unrealistic, unobtainable definition of beauty that our culture has, defined as tall, thin, and young.
Right.
So it's really a perspective change, in my opinion. I mean, these things are safe, and there are medical reasons why we need to do these procedures. I'm glad they're out there, but not to the extent that we're doing them.
Have you ever heard of studies that indicate there's a correlation between Botox and cognitive decline in later years?
Yeah, I don't know of that relationship. What I do see now are studies about Botox. Remember, Botox works by paralyzing muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about someone who's done it once or twice, but people who choose to do Botox every 3-4 months, you're consistently paralyzing a muscle. And when you paralyze a muscle, it atrophies. Any muscle that's not used atrophies. Well, part of the aging process is also muscle atrophy. So I understand the goal is to minimize a wrinkle, but perhaps, just perhaps, we are doing more damage down the line as we cause these muscles to atrophy. I don't know the answer. The studies are ongoing. But there is some research there, and I'm not sure the muscles after the Botox wears away ever recoups to its normal volume, and that's what the studies are showing. Again, I'm talking about people who do it a lot.
Wow,
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Wow. So you talked about healthy lifestyle and diet. What about things like smoking and excessive alcohol? Do they have a negative impact on skin?
Well, absolutely. We know smoking, you get the irides, the lines right above the lip.
Mm.
And again, if you believe that I do, like I do, that the health of the skin parallels a healthy body, I don't think we have to discuss the detriment to smoking and talk about carcinogens, but alcohol as well. Alcohol breaks down into something called aldehydes. We know aldehydes are carcinogenic, and again, it's not taking one glass of wine, but again, consistent intake of alcohol. I believe now the recommendation is there's no level of alcohol that is deemed quote unquote safe. That doesn't mean a glass of wine is going to cause cancer, but a lot of consumption might just very well increase the risk. So
Sure.
those are, I would avoid those on a regular basis.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
What are
Kathleen.
your thoughts on the use of tanning beds and even self-tanning creams?
Well, tanning beds are ultraviolet light, so there's
Hmm.
absolutely no reason to expose yourself. We've discussed the damage of ultraviolet light, both the decrease in physical appearance, the pigmentation, the wrinkling, and ultraviolet light is just another source if you get it in a tanning bed. The tanning creams, however, I have no really issues with those.
Oh,
It's an ingredient called dihydroxyacetone. It just stains the surface of the skin. It's temporary. Last several days, you would have to keep reapplying it. And I haven't seen any studies that show it's harmful, short of anybody inhaling it, right? You don't want to be breathing it in. But staining the surface of the skin, if you want that darker tone, some very nice products are available. Again, short of inhaling it. I have no problem with that. But that is not protection from the sun. When you're
right.
darker from
Hmm.
staining the skin, you still need sunscreen. Don't be fooled to think that because you're darker, you have more sun protection. That's just not how it works with the tanning creams.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. But natural tanning, presumably with the use of sunscreens, that does give you some protection, does it?
Well, the tan is, again, ultraviolet light stimulates melanin production, which is the pigment production, to protect
Sure.
your skin from ultraviolet light.
Right.
It's your little suit of armor. So yes, it does cause some protection inherently, but again, it also causes skin cancer. So
Sure.
don't ultraviolet light. I think you'd be better off, again, being sun smart.
But we've seen quite a change in perspective, because going back several generations, if you read historical novels and even factual accounts, that uh, women in Europe who had no tan at all were considered the most beautiful, weren't they? That pearl white, milk white skin was considered a major
Mhm.
attraction. So what changed? Was this driven by the mass media and marketers, or was it driven by health? What changed?
Mm.
Something happened in the 60s and 70s because, like you, when I was a kid, well, I was told to go outside and get some color. It's good for you. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know the exact impetus behind what created the desire to be not so white, but
Mm,
there are still cultures that do prefer the lighter skin. Much of
right.
Asia still prefers lighter skin. And it
Yeah.
is cultural. It is definitely cultural.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Good.
What about
Good.
the those companies that have the natural skincare creams versus what you find in your drugstore? Is there any, are they any healthier for you than what you would say have on your website, fryface.com?
So natural just tells the consumer or implies that the ingredients, or most of the ingredients, or some of the ingredients come from plants.
Okay.
There's no standard definition or federal guideline for the use of the word natural. Again, it's another buzzword.
Mhm.
I can assure you there's no daisy extract in your skin. I could assure you your skin doesn't want daisy extract.
Mm.
I've tested a lot of natural skincare products. They don't seem to test as well as far as increasing water content of skin. Many of them, like lavender, some of the citrus extracts, can cause allergies. They're allergens. Poison ivy is 100% natural. See what it wreaks havoc in my office every year. So natural is a wonderful, very effective buzzword. Again, implying to me that the ingredients, or some of the ingredients, come from plants. And somehow along the way, our consumer base thinks because it comes from a plant, it's safer.
Mm-hmm.
No correlation between the origin of an ingredient and its safety.
Right. Okay.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
just to switch gears a little bit and going back to talking about skin cancers.
Mhm.
I know that we have doctors here that even look at the soles of the feet for skin cancers, and in areas where you would never think that you would have sun exposure. So how is it that someone might get skin cancer in those areas?
So that's a great question. So we have non-melanoma skin cancers and then melanoma.
Mhm.
The non-melanoma skin cancers, we have what we call more of a direct relationship with sun exposure, meaning those cancers tend to occur where the sun has been exposed. So
Mm-hmm.
squamous cells and basal cells are much more common on the face, on the back of the hands, where the sun exposure took place. Melanomas have what we call an indirect relationship. So they can occur anywhere. But remember, ultraviolet light affects the immunity of the body. What I can tell you is the fairer your skin, the increased risk you have of getting melanoma. The more sunburns you've had, the higher the risk of getting melanoma. The closer you live to the equator, where the ultraviolet rays are more intense, the higher the risk of melanoma. So it's an indirect relationship. It's not so much it occurs where the sun exposure occurred for melanomas. So that's why you can get them on the feed, and melanomas can occur anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And of course, people who've had replacement organs, donated organs, and go on to rejection suppression drugs, quite often are more prevalent. They're more likely to get skin cancers than people who've not had organ replacement, correct?
Correct. Anybody who's on immunosuppressive therapy. So transplant patients are on that therapy so they don't reject their organ. And that would predispose somebody to an increased risk of skin cancers. That's correct.
Right. Good. No, it's a good one. So you mentioned the importance of protecting one's skin against ultraviolet light. If there was one tip to give our audience that they should look at right away to protect themselves over and above using a sunscreen, would you say learning about the ingredients is particularly important, or is there something else you would advise them to do?
I think purchasing products from reputable companies, realizing you
Okay.
don't need most of the products that are on the market. A sunscreen is necessary every day. Moisturizer if the skin is dry, because skin functions best when it's hydrated. And you'll know as a consumer the skin is dry because you'll see flakes, you'll see scales, so you'll know. The first 5 ingredients listed on any skincare ingredient listing probably will comprise about 90 to 95% of that product. So if you could look at the first 4, 5, 6 ingredients, I can guarantee you the first one's going to be water. The second ingredient is likely going to be something called glycerin, or what we call humectant. It's an ingredient that holds on to water. Third or fourth ingredient might be an occlusive, which is just a film former, so water can't evaporate. Petrolatum is a big one, or dimethicone. Those, the first, if you keep looking at the first 4 or 5 ingredients, you're going to see the same 4 or 5 ingredients in many products over and over and over. If you want to become a savvy, mindful consumer, that's what I would recommend people do. But again, purchasing products from reputable companies, they have the resources to make safe, effective products that are available for the best price. And also they had a reputation to uphold. Look what happened to J&J with talc, right? When they lose, confidence, they lose billions with a B. I mean, they really have They really have an incentive to make safe products. And the skincare industry is very safe. I mean, it really is. If you think about it, look at the auto industry. There were 40,000 fatalities on the road last year.
Yeah.
Look at the food industry. There were they say 1 in 6 people have had a food poisoning or illness. That's 48 million people.
Wow.
There's a year in this country. Side effects to skincare products, maybe 500, 800. If they're underreported, maybe 1,000.
Right.
It's really, compared to the food industry and the auto industry, it's a very safe industry.
Right.
And again, minimize what you use. You just don't need to expose yourself to so much. Short of sunscreens and maybe some moisturizer, everything else is extra.
Right. Oh, but good advice. And
How-
equally important, equally important for men as well as women, right?
Correct.
What about hyaluronic acid? That seems to be all the rage that you hear in skincare products, retinol and
Yeah.
things. So what about those?
So in general, all these products that add this, what I call angel dusting, they have a basic moisturizer and they add a tiny bit of something because the industry has figured out something very important. The skincare industry figured out that consumers are willing to spend more money on a product that has more promise. So they can use these little ingredients to, again, increase the promise of the product. Remember, these are cosmetics. By law, they're not designed to change the structure or function of anything. Now, hyaluronic acid is a natural component of the skin. It's a very large molecule. It cannot penetrate the skin. It does happen to be a good humectant, meaning it's an ingredient that holds on to water, much like the glycerin I mentioned. But here's the problem. When you buy a vial of glycerin, it may cost $2. The very same vial may cost $200 for hyaluronic acid. So they're just going to add a tiny, tiny bit. You're not likely going to find hyaluronic acid the first 5 or 6 ingredients. It will be way down the list, enough added just to satisfy the claim on the front of the label. So you can say it's got hyaluronic acid in it to increase the promise, so they can increase the price and call it an anti-aging cream. And unfortunately, that's how it works.
What a gimmick, huh?
Now, these are moisturizers, and they're good moisturizers, but they're moisturizers. And again, these are cosmetics. They're not drugs. They're not designed to change the structure or function of anything. Right. And as I said, we don't know why we age, let alone figure out a way to reverse the aging process. We just don't have, science hasn't figured it out yet.
Right, right. And getting back to skin cancer, if somebody is looking over their body, what exactly should they be looking for if they're looking at moles or just any area of their skin? What is it that should stand out to them as of concern?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I tell my patients this. You're not expected to be a dermatologist. You don't have to look and find it and know what it is. That's not your job. Your job is to find anything that's new or anything that's changing. And to do that, you check your skin once a month. You can look up at the sky and see billions of stars, but the brain is an amazing thing. You will recognize the Big Dipper because you've seen it so many times. When you look at your skin once a month, your brain will recognize your normal mole pattern. You see a change in anything, size, shape, or color of any pre-existing mark on your skin, or you see something new, red, scaly, pigmented, just something that you hadn't noticed before. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, it doesn't go away, then I would seek attention, seek your dermatology help. That's your job. Your job is to find the change. You don't have to know what it is. So check yourself. Use a handheld mirror, check all your back, check your front, check your little girl parts, your little boy parts between your toes. Just look once a month. And don't look every day, because if you look every day, you may not see the change. So I tell my patients on the first day of the month, if they could just spend an extra, 2 minutes in the bathroom and just check themselves. Again, look for something different. If it doesn't go away in a couple of weeks, seek medical attention.
Good advice. Very good. Yeah. Okay. So we are getting near the end.
Yes. How do people contact
Kathleen.
you?
On my website, Fryface, again, it's FRYFACE. There's a contact us.
Okay.
On LinkedIn, we have Fryface on Facebook and also on Instagram. And
how do people get a hold of your book?
The book is on Amazon. The book is sold at Barnes & Noble, I believe, Target, Walmart, hopefully wherever books are sold. But Amazon's probably the easiest.
Fantastic. All right.
Very good. We will put those links in there. So from me, thank you very much, Dr. Frey, for being with us today and certainly waking me up about taking more care of my skin with the skin cancer history that I've had and through neglect and partly ignorance. So I can't blame anyone but myself for that. Thank you. Thanks to our audience for listening. And as always, we've had another interesting guest for you to make sure you don't miss out on the more guests we have coming. And we've got a lot of really good guests coming up. Hop onto our website, theyakkingshow.com. You'll find a purple button, hit that, and you'll get a form to fill in. And we send you one email a week. That's all, just telling you who's on this week and who's coming next week. So once again, thanks, Dr. Frey, and thanks for listening. Bye from me, back to Kathleen.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Frey. It was a pleasure having you on the show today. And thank you also very much for tuning in. If anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, we invite you to visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form, and we would love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.